The first time I saw the Royal Starship bleeding fire, I thought it was dying. And I thought I was going to die with it. The sky above the Citadel port was bright enough to hurt. White light pouring over the angular towers and landing spires. And yet every eye on the platform was locked on the same thing. A massive gray and pearl vessel sliding in with one engine dark. One engine screaming and a trail of vapor like a wounded animal dragging itself home. Sirens did not wail, not here, not for royalty. The silence was worse. It was a held breath. 1,000 officials pretending they were not afraid, while the ship shuddered and tried to stay proud. I was not supposed to be on that platform. I was a contracted technician, the kind they kept in the service tunnels and maintenance decks. The kind that never looked at the crown unless spoken to. But my hands were already dirty from a long shift, and my scanner was still warm. And when the Starship's landing struts hit the platform with a sound like a mountain kneeling, the ground trembled all the way into my bones. Then the heat hit. Pulse of it, rolling out from the open venter rays, hot enough to curl the air. Hot enough to make the nearest honor guards take a half step back before they remembered their pride. That is when I saw the right engine nacelle. The royal crest on it was scorched, and beneath the scorched plating I saw raw metal glowing, and I knew what that meant. Containment failure. One more minute in flight and the engine core would have cracked, and the ship would have turned into a sun over the capital. I heard someone whisper, not my language. But fear always translates. The Queen is on board. My heart tried to climb out of my throat. I told myself to move away, to be invisible, to let the noble engineers handle it, the ones with polished boots and ceremonial tools, the ones with permission. But my eyes stayed on the engine, and my mind ran the numbers, and my hands traitors to my fear. Were already reaching for my kit. A high officer barked orders, drones rose, clamps moved, hoses deployed, and still the engine kept glowing like an anger that would not be soothed. I pushed forward, and a guard turned toward me, armor shining. Spear angled down like a judgment. Stop, the word was sharp. I should have stopped. I should have backed away. Instead I heard myself speak, calm, simple. The way you talk when you are trying not to drown. If that core breaches, she dies, you die, everyone dies. Let me look. The guard hesitated, and that hesitation was the gap I needed. I ducked under a floating clamp drone, slid past a hose, and got close enough that the heat kissed my face. Close enough to smell burned insulator and melted sealant. Close enough to see the microfractures spidering along the outer shroud. The Royal Engineers were already there, 6 of them, pale uniforms. Jeweled badges, expressions like carved stone. One of them saw me and his eyes narrowed. You are not authorized. I did not argue. Arguing takes time. I knelt, slapped my scanner against the hull, and listened to the ship's heartbeat through numbers. Pressure climbing, temperature climbing, magnetic field stuttering like a dying song. Someone grabbed my shoulder hard, trying to pull me back. I did not look up, I said, slowly, so no one could misunderstand. The plasma regulator ring is warped. Your coolant feed is misaligned by 3 degrees. You are flooding the wrong channel. Stop pumping, now. One of the Royal Engineers scoffed. Impossible. Our systems are perfect. Perfect does not survive combat. I snapped, then I forced my voice down again. Because shouting wastes oxygen in your brain. Stop pumping. You are feeding the fracture. For a heartbeat, nobody moved, and I felt the entire platform hang over the cliff of disaster. Then, from behind, the line of guards and officials. A new presence arrived, silent and heavy as gravity. The air changed. The way air changes before a storm. The honor guard straightened as if pulled by invisible strings. And every head turned, and I turned too. Because even fear can be curious. She stepped forward, the alien queen. I had seen her only in distant hollows, and even those images had never prepared me for the reality of her. Pale skin, but not fragile. Pale like polished stone under sunlight, with glowing golden markings tracing her face and throat. Lines like living circuitry, lines that pulsed gently as if her blood carried light. Her eyes were gold, bright, predatory, and ancient, and when they moved, the world seemed to follow. Her crown was a weapon made beautiful, spikes and filigree, jewels catching the harsh light, and her high-collar armor gown wrapped her like royalty and war in the same breath. She looked at the burning engine first, then at me, kneeling in grime, hands on a scanner, hair damp with sweat. A royal engineer hurried to her, bowing, speaking quickly, likely explaining how everything was under control, how the situation was being managed, how there was no reason for concern. The Queen lifted one hand, and he fell silent as if the sound had been cut from his throat. Her voice was calm, and it carried without effort. "Why is a human touching my ship?" All eyes turned to me, and suddenly I could feel every inch of my low status like a weight on my back. My mouth went dry. I could have lied. I could have tried to flatter. Instead, I told the truth. Because the truth was the fastest path to survival. Because your engine is seconds from breaching, and they are making it worse. A sharp inhale went through the crowd like wind through blades. The royal engineers stiffened, offended. The Queen's golden eyes did not blink, explain, so I did, in plain English shaped by adrenaline. I pointed to the coolant feed, to the regulator housing, to the expansion seam where the fracture was spreading. I spoke of degrees and flow rates and heat load. I spoke the language of machines, the only language that never cared about rank. The Queen listened, and while I spoke, her markings pulsed brighter. When I finished, the Queen looked at the royal engineers, and her gaze was like winter. "Stop pumping." She ordered now. The pumps stopped, and the engine, for the first time since landing, stopped climbing toward death. The platform did not cheer. Royalty does not allow it. But I felt something loosen in the air. The held breath released. The Queen stepped closer, her guards shifting with her, and the heat from the engine washed over her. Yet she did not flinch. She looked down at my hands, the grease, the burns on my knuckles, the cheap tools that had seen too many jobs. Then she said a word I did not expect. "Fix it." A royal engineer protested, his voice trembling with outrage. "Majesty, this is beneath you. And beneath protocol, we have specialists." The Queen did not even look at him. "If my ship dies, my people die. If my people die, your titles mean nothing," she said softly. And that softness was more terrifying than shouting. Then her gaze returned. "To me, human, if you save my starship, you will be rewarded. If you fail, you will be vapor. Do you understand?" I swallowed and nodded. Because there was nothing else to do. "Yes, Majesty." I crawled into the access channel under the engine shroud, where the air was thick with heat and the smell of scorched composites, where the metal walls hummed with stressed energy. My earpiece crackled with voices, royal engineers arguing, guards demanding updates, officials panicking politely. I shut them all out and listened to the ship. Machines talk, not with words, but with vibration, pressure, timing, the rhythm of systems fighting to stay alive. The regulator ring had deformed from a directed energy hit, a weapon strike that had kissed the engine just enough to twist it. And that twist had caused the coolant to starve one section while drowning another, creating uneven thermal expansion, cracking the containment seam. It was not a problem you solve with ceremony. It was a problem you solve with ugly work. I braced myself, anchored a clamp, and reached into the cramped space with my cutting torch. The first cut sprayed sparks like angry fireflies, and heat rolled up my arms. I whispered to myself, not prayer. Just focus, easy, steady, no hero moves. Behind me, somewhere outside the shroud, I heard boots, a guard shifting, a royal engineer muttering something about contamination. I kept cutting, kept removing warped brackets, kept measuring alignment by touch when my scanner started glitching from the magnetic field. Time stretched, then snapped. A warning tone screamed in my ear. Containment field instability. I felt the engine's hum change, a pitch rising. The kind of rising that ends worlds. My mind went cold. The regulator was still misaligned. I needed a spacer, a thermal-resistant shim. Something that could survive. A few minutes of hell until the ship's systems could cool. I did not have the proper part. The Royal Inventory drones would take too long. So I did what humans always do when the universe refuses to cooperate. I improvised. I pulled the emergency seal plate from my own kit, a cheap alloy designed for civilian freighters, and I recut it, reshaped it with my torch, hammered it against the engine frame, burned my palm through my glove. Did not stop. I shoved it into place, forcing the alignment back. Then I rerouted coolant manually, overriding the locked Royal software with a hard patch into the diagnostic port. The port rejected me. Of course it did. Royal ships did not accept human credentials, so I did not ask for permission. I forced it, bridging contacts, fooling the handshake, speaking to the machine in pulses and timing. The way you trick a stubborn animal by breathing with it. The coolant surged, and for a moment the engine bucked angry. Then the temperature dipped, the pressure steadied, the hum lowered into something that sounded like relief. My warning tone stopped screaming and became a steady pulse. Stable, I exhaled, and only then realized I had been holding my breath long enough to make stars dance in my vision. Outside the shroud, voices rose, surprised, uncertain, then a stunned silence. I crawled out, face streaked with soot, hair damp, hands shaking from effort. The Royal Engineers stared at the data feed like it was a miracle they could not admit. The guards looked at me like I had just wrestled a monster with bare hands. The Queen stepped forward, and in that moment, even the light seemed to bend toward her. Her markings glowed stronger now, pulsing in slow waves. She looked at the stabilized engine, then at me. Her expression did not soften, but something in her eyes changed, something that felt like recognition. You fixed it, she said. I nodded. Too tired to pretend calm. It will hold, but you need a full dock overhaul. And whoever fired on you knew exactly where to hit. A ripple went through the officials. The implication was poison, assassination attempt, sabotage, enemy intelligence. Inside the Empire, the Queen's jaw tightened. Then she did something no one expected, something that made the entire platform freeze. She raised her hand and pointed at me. "Bring him," she said. To me, two guards moved toward me. And for half a second, my body tried to fight, not because I wanted to, but because fear is a reflex. I raised my hands, palms open. "I am coming," I said quickly. The guards escorted me across the platform, past the Royal Engineers whose eyes burned with humiliation, past the officials who looked away as if my grime might stain their souls. We stopped before the Queen up close. The golden lines on her skin were even more intricate, branching like rivers of light, and her eyes, those gold eyes, felt like they could see every secret in my bones. She leaned in, and in a voice only I could hear, she asked, "What is your name?" I swallowed. "Elias Rook." Her markings pulsed once. "Bright, Elias Rook," she repeated, slowly, like tasting the shape of the sound. Then she straightened and spoke louder so all could hear, "By the old covenant and the living throne, I named this human my chosen." The word hit the platform like thunder. The officials gasped. The guards stiffened. The Royal Engineers turned pale. I felt my stomach drop. Chosen. That word meant religion, politics, prophecy, power, and death, all wrapped together. I tried to speak, to protest, to ask what she meant. But the Queen's gaze pinned me, and her voice turned colder. "Silence, chosen. You will come with me to the Citadel. You will stand where no human has stood, and you will tell me how my enemies found my throat." My throat went dry. "Majesty," I began. She cut me off. "You will not call me Majesty," she said, and the officials flinched. As if struck, "You will call me by my true name." She paused, and the air itself seemed to wait. "Serapha," she said. "Queen Serapha of the luminous throne." Then she turned, her gown armor shifting like layered metal petals, and began to walk. The guards moved with her, and one of them nudged me forward. I walked because I had no choice, and because somewhere deep inside under fear, a strange spark of pride flickered. A human walking beside the alien queen while the Empire watched inside the Citadel corridors. Everything was clean, white stone and metal, angular arches, glowing lines embedded in the walls like veins of light. Servants and soldiers stepped aside, eyes lowered, yet I felt their curiosity like heat on my skin. They led me into a chamber that looked like a war room and a temple had been fused together. Maps of star systems suspended in the air, holographic. Fleets frozen in motion, and at the center, a circular dais with a throne that seemed carved from the same pale material as the queen's skin. Queen Serapha sat, and the room became smaller, as if gravity had increased. Her guards took positions. Statues with eyes. A tall official approached, bowed, began to speak, likely to suggest that I be questioned elsewhere, away from the throne. Serapha lifted her hand, and he stopped. "Leave us," she said. "Majesty," the official protested. "This is not safe, Serapha's." Eyes flashed, and her markings flared brighter. "Leave?" The official fled like a man escaping a blade, and the doors sealed. Now it was just her, her guards at a distance, and me standing alone on polished stone. Still smelling of smoke and grease, Serapha studied me for a long moment. Then she asked, "Do you know what you are, Elias Rook?" My voice came out rough. "A technician, a human, someone who wants to go back to his bunk and sleep for a week." One corner of her mouth moved, not a smile, but something close. "You are not merely a technician," she said. "My ship recognized you." I blinked, confused. "Your ship recognized me." Serapha stood and descended from the throne. Each step measured, controlled. She stopped close enough that I could see the fine texture of her markings, the way they moved faintly like living light. She extended her hand, palm up, and on her palm a small hollow projection formed, an ancient symbol, a ring of stars around a single line that split into 3 branches. "This is the covenant mark," she said. "It is older than my throne, older than my bloodline. It was left by the ones we call the first builders." I had heard stories, everyone had, myths about ancient engineers who shaped gates and worlds, who vanished, leaving relics that still powered half the empire. Serapha's eyes locked on mine. "My royal starship is bound to this covenant. It will not accept commands from those unmarked. It will not open certain systems unless it senses the correct resonance." I swallowed. I forced a diagnostic override. I said, carefully. Serapha shook her head, slow. "You did more than override," she said. "You touched the diagnostic port and the ship opened. Not reluctantly, not with error. It opened like a door welcoming its owner. Her markings pulsed. You spoke to it, and it listened." I felt cold spread in my chest. "That is impossible," I said. "Humans do not have your covenant. We were invited here as labor, as traders, as minor allies, not as heirs of your myths, Serapha's." Gaze sharpened. "That is what you have been told." She stepped around me. Slow as a predator. "Tell me, Elias Rook, where were you born?" I hesitated, then answered, "Outer Belt Habitat 9, Human Sector." Serapha's voice lowered. "And your parents?" I frowned. "I never knew them. I was raised by dock crews." Serapha stopped, and for a moment something like sadness flickered behind her gold eyes. "Of course," she murmured. Then she turned back to me, and her voice became steel again. "My starship was attacked on the return route from the Frontier Council. The weapon strike was precise, too precise. And the only way our attackers knew that weak point is if someone inside my court gave them the schematics." I said nothing because saying nothing was safer than choosing the wrong words. Serapha's gaze held me, and I realized she was not merely questioning me. She was measuring me, weighing me as if deciding whether I was a weapon or a wound. Then she spoke again, softer, but no less intense. "When I called you chosen, Elias Rook, it was not only politics, it was necessity." I frowned. "Necessity?" Serapha nodded. "If my enemies are inside my court, they will move again. They will strike again, and next time they will not miss." She raised a hand, and the holomap shifted, revealing a cluster of systems at the edge of the empire. "There is a gate," she said, "an ancient first builder gate, sealed for centuries. My line has tried to open it with ceremony, with blood vows, with prayers, with every royal key we possess. And it remains silent. Her markings pulsed brighter, like anger contained. But today, my ship recognized you today, the Covenant breathed. For a human, she leaned closer, voice almost a whisper. If you are what I think you are, you can open that gate. I stared at her, heart pounding. And if I refuse, I asked. Serapha's eyes narrowed slightly. Then you will return to your bunk, and you will die quietly, because my enemies will not allow a chosen to exist outside my control. That was the first time I realized she was not threatening me, she was warning me. A silence stretched between us. Heavy and sharp, I said. Carefully. So you want to use me? Serapha's gaze did not waver. Yes, she said. And you will use me. I blinked. Throne use you. Her voice hardened. I am the queen, Elias Rook. I am surrounded by knives dressed as loyalty. I need a blade that does not belong to any of them. She paused, and the next words came quieter, almost reluctant. And I need someone who will tell me the truth, even when it makes me furious. I stared, feeling the strange weight of her honesty. Then I asked the question that had been burning since the platform. Why did you call me chosen in front of everyone? Serapha's markings pulsed, and she looked away for a fraction of a second, which on her face felt like an earthquake, because if I did not, they would have killed you before you left the dock, she said. They would have erased the proof, and my ship would have remained silent, and I would have remained blind. She looked back at me, eyes fierce. Now you are under my name, my protection, and my curse. My breath shook. So what happens now? I asked. Serapha lifted her chin. Now we prepare, she said. Now we find the traitor. Now we go to the gate. And now we see what the first builders left behind. That night, they gave me quarters in a wing that used to house foreign ambassadors. The irony was not lost on anyone. I sat alone on a bed too soft for a mechanic, staring at my hands, the burns, the grease stains that no royal cleanser could fully remove. Outside, the citadel hummed. I could not sleep, because every time I closed my eyes I saw the engine glowing, the fracture spreading, the moment before death, and behind that, I saw Serapha's eyes when she said chosen. Not pride, not triumph, but fear. Not fear for herself, fear for her people. In the days that followed, Serapha kept me close, not like a pet, not like a trophy, but like a tool she could not afford to lose. I attended briefings where admirals spoke of border raids and rebel coalitions. I watched nobles smile while their eyes measured me like prey. I saw priests of the luminous throne whisper prayers as I walked past, as if my presence threatened their faith. And through it all, Serapha remained the center, regal, relentless, glowing with that living gold beneath her skin. She trained me in her way, not with weapons, but with questions, with tests, with sudden shifts of situation to see if I would break. One day she led me to the royal hangar and stood before the starship I had saved. Up close, it was even more immense. A cathedral of metal and purpose. Serapha placed her hand on the hull, and her markings flared, the ship responding with a low harmonic tone. Then she nodded at me. Touch it, she said. I hesitated, then placed my palm against the cool metal. The moment my skin met the hull, I felt something, not electricity, not heat, but recognition, like a lock turning. Lights along the ship's side shifted, patterns changing, and a panel I had never seen before slid open silently, revealing an inner interface. The guards sucked in breath. The royal engineers who had been watching from a distance stiffened, faces pale. Serapha's eyes burned. It is real, she whispered. I pulled my hand back, heart racing. What am I? I asked. Serapha's voice became quiet. You are a key, she said, or a weapon, or a message. Before I could speak, alarms blared through the hangar, sharp and urgent. A guard shouted, intruders. Everything moved at once. Soldiers ran, drones rose. The hangar doors began to seal. Serapha stepped in front of me, her posture protective without hesitation, and that single motion sent a strange shock through my chest, because she did not have to do that. The first explosion hit the outer gate, metal screaming, smoke boiling in. Figures poured through the breach. Armored, fast, bearing no royal crest, only matte black plating, assassins. They moved like machines, firing silent energy bursts, dropping guards before the guards could raise spears. Serapha's markings flared, and the lights in the hangar dimmed as if power was being drawn toward her. She raised her hand, and a wave of force snapped outward, invisible but violent, throwing 2 assassins back like toys. But there were too many, and they were not surprised. They had planned for her power, a shimmer field deployed around them, dampening, disrupting. Serapha's eyes narrowed, and for the first time I saw frustration crack her control. "They came for you," she said, voice tight. "Not for me." A bolt tore past her shoulder and scorched the wall. I ducked, adrenaline slamming into my blood. I was not a soldier, but humans do not need to be soldiers to fight. Humans fight with whatever is in their hands. My eyes scanned the hangar, tools, crates, fuel lines, maintenance drones. A maintenance drone hovered nearby. Carrying a coil of heavy cable, I sprinted, grabbed the cable, yanked it free. The drone beeped protest. An assassin turned toward me. Weapon raised. I did not charge him, I charged the environment. I hurled the cable into the air, looping it over a support strut, then dropped my weight, swinging the cable down like a whip. The coil struck the assassin's arm, weapon clattering. Before he could recover, I slammed my shoulder into him, drove him into a crate edge, and he collapsed, stunned. Pain exploded in my shoulder, but I stayed moving. Because humans do not win by being stronger. We win by refusing to stop. Serapha saw me, and something like fierce approval flashed across her face. Then she shouted to her guards, "Protect the chosen, seal the ship." The assassins pushed harder, a coordinated surge toward me. I realized their goal: take me alive or take me dead. Either way, remove the key. A bolt struck the floor near my feet and blew a chunk of stone into my shin. Pain screamed. I stumbled. Serapha moved like lightning, stepping into the line of fire, her hand raised, her markings blazing. She took a hit, not directly, but enough. The shimmer field caught her force wave and snapped it back. And she staggered, a rare, terrifying sight. The queen unsteady. Her guards shouted, "Majesty." Serapha's jaw clenched. "No," she hissed. "Not Majesty." She looked at me, eyes fierce. "Move, Elias." To the ship now I ran, limping, toward the starships. Side hatch. The hatch opened before I touched it. As if the ship itself was pulling me in, I turned back, saw Serapha surrounded by chaos, her crown gleaming, her eyes blazing, her markings pulsing like a star, and I saw an assassin raise a weapon, aiming not at her chest, but at her throat. The exact place she had named earlier, the exact place that meant silence forever. Something in me snapped, not fear, not anger. Something older, something that felt like a human promise. I grabbed a fuel hose, heavy, thick, and I swung it, hard, smashing it into the assassin's weapon. The weapon fired wild, striking the support column. Sparks exploding. Serapha's eyes met mine for a fraction of a second. In that instant, I understood something. She was alone, not because she had no guards, but because no one could truly stand beside her without being swallowed by politics, by fear, by worship. No one except someone who had nothing to lose. Someone like me. Serapha's hand shot forward, and her force wave slammed the assassin into the hangar wall, knocking him out cold. Then she grabbed my arm, her grip strong, and pulled me into the ship. The hatch sealed behind us. The sounds of battle muffled. Inside, the royal corridors glowed with calm light, like the ship refused to acknowledge the violence outside. Serapha leaned against the wall for a moment, breathing controlled, but I could see the strain around her eyes. "Are you injured?" I asked, voice rough. Serapha looked at me, then down at her shoulder where the shimmer backlash had scorched her armor. "Pain is irrelevant," she said. Then her eyes narrowed. "But your blood is on my ship." I looked down and realized my shin was bleeding, dark streaks on the polished floor. I tried to apologize, then stopped. because apologizing to a queen for bleeding during an assassination attempt felt absurd. Serapha moved closer, and her markings pulsed softer now. She raised her hand, hovered it near my wound without touching, and a warmth spread through my leg. Not healing completely, but sealing the bleeding enough to stop the drip. I stared at her. "You can do that?" I asked. Serapha's gaze flickered away. "I can do many things," she said. And yet I could not stop them from coming. Her voice held anger now. But beneath it, I heard something else, something like exhaustion. "They knew my route," she said. "They knew where I would stand. They knew where you would be. Someone close, someone trusted." I swallowed. "So what now?" I asked. Serapha straightened, and the queen returned fully. "Controlled, cold, brilliant. Now we stop hiding," she said. "Now we go to the gate before they can prepare another strike. Now we open what my ancestors could not. And when we return, we cleanse my court with fire." The words should have terrified me, but they did not. Because humans understand cleansing fires, we have lit them ourselves, in our histories, when rot grew too deep. We launched that night, the royal starship lifting from the Citadel port, under emergency shield cover, guards sealing every access. The city below shrinking into a grid of light. In the cockpit, Serapha took the command seat, her posture regal even in a pilot harness. She did not order me to sit behind her. She pointed to the seat beside hers, a place no one else had ever occupied. "Sit, chosen," she said. I hesitated, then sat. The ship's systems hummed around us, and I felt again that strange recognition. Like the ship was aware of me. Serapha watched the star map, her face set. After a long moment, she spoke quietly, so only I could hear, "Elias Rook, if the gate opens for you, it will change everything." I kept my eyes on the stars ahead. "Good," I said, because I did not know what else to say. Serapha's gaze slid to me, sharp. "You do not fear change," she said. I let out a breath that was almost a laugh. "Humans live in change," I said. "We are born in chaos. We build homes in storms. We fix engines while worlds burn." Serapha stared at me, and for the first time her expression softened, just a fraction. "Maybe that is why the first builders chose your kind," she murmured. Hours later, we reached the edge of a dead system, a place where no colonies remained, where the sun was dim and old, in the darkness between broken asteroids. The gate hung like a ring the size of a continent, ancient metal etched with patterns that looked almost like Serapha's markings. But older, deeper. Serapha's voice turned reverent despite herself. "There it is," she said, "the sealed mouth of the first builders." The royal fleet escorts held position at a distance, nervous, silent. Serapha turned to me. "This is where your choice becomes real," she said. "If you open it, you step into history, and if you cannot, my enemies will claim you were a fraud, and they will tear you apart to learn why my ship listened to you." My throat tightened. "No pressure," I said, trying for humor. Failing, Serapha did not smile, but her eyes warmed slightly. "Pressure creates diamonds," she said, "or it crushes." We approached the gate, the ship gliding toward the ancient ring. A docking interface extended, old metal meeting newer metal, like a handshake across centuries. The moment the ship linked, a low vibration rolled through the hull. A sound that felt like a voice waking from sleep. Lights along the gate flickered. Faint gold, then faded again, as if uncertain. Serapha whispered, "It senses you." My hands trembled, but I forced them steady. I stood, moved to the interface chamber. A circular room lined with ancient symbols. In the center, a pedestal rose. Waiting, I placed my palm on it. The world went silent, not quiet, silent, like the universe had turned its head to listen. Then the pedestal warmed. A pulse traveled up my arm, into my chest, and I felt something unlock inside me. Memories that were not mine, images of star systems, shaped by hands that burned with light. Voices speaking in tones that made matter obey. I gasped. Serapha's voice reached me from behind. "Urgent, Elias." I could not answer, because the gate was speaking through sensation, through resonance, through something deeper than language. My mind flashed with a single truth. Clear as fire, humans were not outsiders. Not originally, we were descendants, fractured remnants, scattered, forgotten on purpose, hidden from those who would enslave the covenant. The gate did not care about crowns. It did not care about Serapha's bloodline. It cared about the pattern. In my cells, the resonance in my nervous system, the echo of the first builders buried in human DNA, like a secret promise. My voice came out raw. "Serapha," I said. She stepped closer, and I heard something in her breath. Hope, fear, hunger. "What is it?" she demanded softly. I swallowed, eyes burning. "We were here first," I said. "Not us. Not me, but humanity, our ancestors. They built this. Then they erased themselves, or they were erased. And we became the laborers of our own ruins." Serapha's markings flared, and her expression cracked. Genuine shock. "That is impossible," she whispered. Then the pedestal pulsed again, and the gate responded. The ancient ring outside lit up, gold lines igniting across its surface like veins of sunrise. The fleet channels erupted with frantic voices, alarms, awe, fear. Serapha's eyes widened, and for the first time she looked truly young beneath her crown. "It is opening," she breathed. The gate center, once dark, began to shimmer, space folding. Like fabric, a doorway forming, and then from the gate, a transmission pulsed. A signal that bypassed all encryption, all language barriers, and spoke directly into the ship's systems. A calm, ancient voice filled the chamber. "Covenant key confirmed. Welcome home." Serapha stared at me, gold eyes blazing with something that looked like triumph and terror at once. "Home," she whispered. Then the shimmer stabilized, the doorway fully formed, but as it formed, a warning screamed through the ship. A new contact on sensors, a fleet signature moving fast. Too fast. Serapha's head snapped up. "Enemies," she hissed. "They followed us." The traitor had not only tried to kill us, they had guided an enemy fleet to the gate, to seize whatever lay beyond on the holomap. Black ships emerged from the dark, weapons charging. Serapha's guards shouted, "Majesty, we must retreat." Serapha's gaze locked on the gate, then on me. "If we retreat, they claim it," she said, voice shaking with rage. "If they claim it, my empire dies, and your people remain slaves to lies." I felt fear claw at my spine, but beneath it, I felt something else, that same human spark that had pushed me to kneel by. A burning engine. Humans do not retreat when the cost is everything. I stepped toward the pedestal again. "What is beyond the gate?" I asked. Serapha's voice was tight. "Unknown," she said. "Then we go." I said. Serapha stared at me. "You would risk it?" she asked. I met her gaze. "I already did," I said. Behind us, the first enemy shots began to streak toward the royal ship, the escort fleet intercepting, explosions blooming in silent fire outside. Serapha made a decision in a single breath. "All power to forward shields," she commanded. "Prepare to transit." Her eyes locked on mine, and her voice dropped, intense, personal. "Elias Rook, chosen. If you betray me, I will end you myself." I nodded, and my voice came out steady. "If I betray you, I will deserve it." Serapha's markings flared, then softened. Then she said, so quietly it almost felt like a confession, "Do not die." The ship surged forward, toward the shimmering doorway, while battle erupted behind us. The impact of transit hit like a fist, the universe twisting, my stomach turning, my vision flooding with light, then suddenly calm. We emerged into a place that did not feel like normal space. The stars were arranged differently, too symmetrical, too deliberate, as if someone had designed the sky. Ahead, an enormous structure floated, a city made of light and metal, layered. Rings and towers, glowing lines like Serapha's markings, but magnified to the scale of mountains. "The first builder sanctuary." Serapha's breath caught. "We found it," she whispered. But there was no time for awe, because the gate behind us flickered, and the enemy fleet began to push through, forcing their way, tearing at the doorway with brute power. Serapha slammed her hand on controls. "We cannot let them enter," she snarled. I looked at the interface pedestal, felt it pulsing. As if waiting for a command, the ancient voice spoke again. Calm, covenant key, state intent. I swallowed, mind racing. State intent. Humans are good at intent. We survive by deciding what matters most. I placed my hand on the pedestal and spoke. Loud, clear, with everything in me. Lock the gate. The pedestal warned, and the sanctuary responded. The gate behind us began to constrict, the shimmer tightening, resisting the enemy transit. On sensors, enemy ships slammed against the narrowing doorway, their hulls flaring, their signals screaming. Serapha's eyes widened. You can command it, she breathed. I gritted my teeth, feeling the strain, like holding a collapsing wall with one hand. Not for long, I said. The ancient voice spoke. Locking requires sacrifice of key resonance. I froze. Sacrifice. Serapha heard it too. And she stepped forward. Voice. Sharp, explain. The voice remained calm. Gate lock permanent. Key must remain to anchor seal. Key life will terminate. My blood went cold. Serapha's expression shattered, real panic breaking through her regal mask. No, she said. Ilias, step away. I stared at the pedestal. At the doorway flickering behind us. At the enemy ships forcing through. If the enemy entered the sanctuary, they would seize first builder tech. They would become unstoppable, and Serapha's empire would burn. And humans would remain under lies forever. I thought of the dock crews who raised me, the workers who kept grand machines alive while nobles took credit. I thought of the comments on my channel, people begging for a story that did not waste their time, that did not lie, that gave them a reason to stay, a reason to believe. I looked at Serapha. She was a queen, yes. But in that moment, she was also just a person staring at the edge of losing everything. Her eyes were gold and wet, and her markings pulsed wildly. Do not do this, she said, voice breaking. I forced a breath, kept my voice calm for the AI, for the rhythm, for the audience that would feel the truth in pacing. If I do not, they come through, I said. If they come through, everyone dies. Serapha stepped closer, her hand reaching for my arm. I will find another way, she pleaded. For the first time she was not ordering, she was begging. And that was the moment I understood what chosen really meant. It meant burden. It meant that sometimes the universe points at someone and says, you not because you are special, but because you are there, and because you will not look away. I met Serapha's gaze, and I put everything I could into my voice. Soft but fierce. Serapha, listen to me, humans. Do not become legends because we win easily. We become legends because we keep others alive. Even if it costs us. Her lips trembled. Elias, I inhaled. And I said the only thing that mattered. Tell them the truth about us. I said, Dow. Them humans built. Humans were lost, and humans are back. Her markings flared, and a sound escaped her. Half anger, half grief. Then she did something that stunned me. She placed her hand over mine on the pedestal. The warmth doubled, her resonance joining mine. The ancient voice paused, then spoke again. 2 resonances detected, shared anchor possible. Life termination reduced by half. I stared at her. Serapha, what are you doing? I demanded. Her eyes blazed. If you die, she said, voice shaking but firm, then the chosen becomes a martyr and the queen becomes a coward. She leaned closer, so close I could feel her breath. I will not be remembered that way. I will not live on a throne built on your bones. I felt something crack inside me. You do not owe me, I whispered. Serapha's mouth tightened. I owe my people, she said, and my people now include you. Outside, enemy ships screamed against the narrowing gate, their hulls burning, their weapons firing uselessly into a closing mouth of light. The strain surged through my arm, through my chest. Serapha's markings pulsed in agony, but she did not let go. I gritted my teeth, forced my voice up. Lock it, I shouted. Permanently, the sanctuary answered. The gate contracted to a single point of blinding gold, and then it snapped shut. Silence. No enemy signatures, no battle alerts, just the hum of the sanctuary and the pounding of my heart. Then the pain hit fully. Like a wave crushing my ribs, I stumbled. Serapha stumbled with me. Still holding my hand, we both fell to our knees on the luminous floor. Breathing hard, shaking, alive. Serapha looked at me, eyes wide. Markings dimmer now but still glowing faintly. Her voice came out rough, vulnerable. "You are still here," she whispered. I laughed once weak. "So are you," I said. For a long moment, we just breathed. Two beings from different worlds kneeling in the same place, bound by a choice. Then the ancient voice spoke again. Calm, almost gentle, covenant restored, sanctuary awakening, welcome, chosen, welcome. Queen of allied blood. Serapha froze. Allied blood, she murmured. She looked at her own hand, then at mine, our skin touching, her pale light-marked fingers against my burned human knuckles. Then she looked up, and something in her expression hardened. "Into purpose we will return," she said, voice gaining strength. "We will expose the traitor. We will rewrite the Empire's lies. And we will bring humans out of the tunnels and into the light." I swallowed, feeling the weight of it. "And what about me?" I asked softly. Serapha's eyes locked on mine. And this time there was no court watching, no officials, no ceremonial distance. She lifted her hand and touched the side of my face with careful fingers. Not a command, not a claim, a simple human gesture translated into alien grace. "You fixed a royal starship," she said. "You saved my life, you saved my people. You sealed a gate that could have ended worlds." Her voice dropped, intense. "You are my chosen, not as a title, but as a truth." I felt my throat tighten. "Serapha," I began, she cut me off, softly. "Do not fear the word, Elias Rook," she said. "Fear what happens if we waste it." She stood and offered me her hand. When I took it, the sanctuary lights brightened, as if approving. As we walked forward together into the ancient city of light, I realized something I had never dared to believe, that humans were not small. We had been made small. And now, with grease still under my nails and a queen's resonance beside mine, we were going to become impossible to ignore, because that is what humans do. We break, we burn, we bleed, we build. And when the universe finally calls our name, we answer, loud,